All right, so 2015 Rocket 3 Roadster with a rear tire missing, obviously. So this is going to be part two. I've already done a video of the entire removal of the rear wheel because I just couldn't find a good one on the web. And so I have linked that video in the description below, just in case you need that one. And I'm going to take off from the last video. Basically, we're right where we left off. The tools are everywhere. Parts are still laying on the ground. The axle's still sitting right there. But there's a couple things that I want to change about the position of the bike on the jack stand. I mentioned that in my in the description of the first message. I have got one of those standard scissor lifts on the bottom here. And as you can see, first of all, I've got it ratchet strapped up and around the, what do we got here? The risers on the handlebars. You can see where it goes up and around there. And it's in a cross pattern going down to the jack stand below. And the rationale there is this bike is goddamn heavy. And so when you get this much weight taken off the back, I was always a little nervous about it not having some straps to hold it down to the jack stand. So I've got a cross hatch pattern going all the way around the front risers and over the horn of the seat, and it's attached down to the jack itself, just to give it a little fight if it ever wants to get a little tilty. And in case you're wondering what the straps on top are for, it's just holding the handlebars straight. I mainly just did that for demonstration purposes because I didn't have to do the front tire. I only got a nail in the rear, but that is bloody handy when you're trying to do the front tire job as well. So yeah, having your wheels straight like that or the handlebar locked like that is really handy. So plus it just keeps it more stable on the bike as well. So everything's balanced. So the first thing I'm going to do is two things here. Actually, there's the reason I want to jack this thing up a little bit higher is I am on the second detent on the jack stand. As you can see, they've got these little safety detents down below, right there. And that's great and all. And it worked pretty good in getting the tire out of the back wasn't too bad. But thinking about it, I don't know why I don't just go up to the very top one, and then that's going to make it that much easier to get the tire back underneath the license plate mount and then kind of up underneath. You're going to put it on the jack there, and then you jack it up just to get level with the axle hole and slide it to engage with the bevel box, which is that beast there. So first thing I'm going to do is I have to take all this cross strapping off. So obviously I can't jack up on it right now or I'm just going to crush everything. So I've got to take those straps off, make sure it's not too psychotically out of balance. And then I'm going to jack this thing up a little bit and get on the third detent and put the straps back on, and then we should be good to go on the reassembly. And then the next step will be cleaning all of the parts that need cleaning. The axle is going to need a little lacquer thinner. I've got any bolt that has thread locker on it. I'm going to put it into the vise over there and hit it with a wire brush in my drill just to get all the thread locker out so we're fresh. And then everything that has any of the remote little bit of grease on it is going to get some lacquer thinner, and then we should be ready to rock. All right, so that's step one, get this thing a bit higher. All right, so these are the two pieces that need a little wire brushing. I got the bike up even higher now, so she's on the third safety detent. Reapplied my cross straps, so she's safe and sound. And I should have a ton more room to jack that rear tire up into the perfect spot to slide the axle through. So it should be easy peasy. So next up is this goofy ass thing here, which is called what is it called again? The torque reaction bolt. This thing here is the one that holds your rear caliper in place. It's the one closest towards the front of the bike, the frontmost bolt. The rear one is the axle bolt, actually. So this big giant is the axle. And yeah, this end here had thread locker on it, and this has got some thread locker goop. So I'm going to bust out the drill and throw a wire brush head in it, and I'm going to give these both a little cleaning, hit them with the lacquer thinner, and then when I'm ready to go for the axle, I'm just going to apply. Again, I don't know if you need to do this. I'm sure there's a bushing or bearings or whatever in there, but I'm going to put a little bit of lube, probably just Molly 77, the good stuff. I'll just put a thin coating across here, maybe wheel bearing grease. And yeah, just something. I don't know if it's needed or not, but hey, there's always time for lube. Lacquer thinnered and wire brushed and looking good. Yeah, she's nice and shiny now. So yeah, got all the good stuff out of there. That beast is nice and clean. and ready for reinstall. So let's go have a quick look here. Plan of attack, now that I've got a bit more height, is I'm going to get the jack recentered, because when I took the tire out, I just pushed the jack away with my feet while sitting kind of behind the bike after I successfully pulled the wheel to the right out of the bevel box. Jesus, that was confusing. Anyway, go watch the other video. You'll see how it worked. So yeah, so we're basically ready to go. I think I might grab a couple other parts, like the spacer that's sitting down right over right there. I think that spacer needs a little lacquer thinner to get nice and clean. And I'm going to throw a wire brush through the axle bolt, which is sitting over there. And I think that might be at the brake caliper, if I remember right. Where is it here? Oh, it's right in it's right in the swing arm. It's a little dark, sorry. Yeah, there we go. Now it's adjusted. You can see there's quite a bit of thread locker inside there. That's where the torque reaction bolt went as well. So yeah, that I think I might throw a little wire brush in just to give it a quick cleaning. And then it's just going to be a matter of, clearing a path. I want to get stuff out of my way, load the tire on the jack, and then we slide the axle through, and that should be, the beginning of the reassembly. Here we go. All right, so that actually reminded me of one other thing I wanted to do. I just finished cleaning off the little wheel spacer that goes in the back. But I promised myself while I was in here, I was going to clean out the bevel box a little bit. It's surprisingly clean. I guess it only does have about 4,000 miles on it after I got the nail in my tire. But I'm just going to go grab a rag and some lacquer thinner, and I'm going to just give this a quick little cleaning. I'm going to reapply some fresh Moly 77, and then we're ready to rock. So I'm going to do this part, and then I'm going to do the mating surface. Get up here, which is on the tire. There's the beast there. It's got the Avon Cobra on it, and it's awesome. And let's see here, let's flip this around. This is the mating surface. That's what you're looking at inside the bevel box. So it's obviously a big old chunky gear. So I'm just going to give that thing a quick little cleaning as well, and fresh Moly, and just a very thin coat. And yeah, we should be ready to rock. That should be all the parts that need pre-lubing, and then we're ready to go. To me that I keep talking about the Moly grease I'm going to put on. This is the stuff right here. Reading on the forums, this is I just tapped the bottle to try to focus it. That's hilarious. Yeah, that's the stuff right there, and it is highly recommended. There's all your goodness. So it was kind of expensive if I remember right, but apparently this is the best. So yeah, if you're going to do the job, do it right, I guess. That's the beast. And the next thing we've got to do is, so I don't forget later, is you always want to degrease. Let me get this thing flipped around here. You always want to degrease your brake caliper before, because we're here. I've been touching this thing as you're moving it around, and you want to make sure you don't get any skin oils or any greases that you've been working with on your hands on that wheel disc. So again, lacquer thinner, for the win. So I'm just going to soak a rag, give that a little once around, and then I'm going to consider that clean. I might do, once you get the axle through and it's hanging free before you put the brake caliper back on, I might give it a little gentle spin and give it a rewipe. But always remember to degrease your wheel disc before you put her on. Okay. Okay, so we have got the old tire up on a jack here, and my axle's ready to go and cleaned. I've actually already done this whole thing once. I've already had it up and the axle through, but I forgot the stupid spacer. And it is such a tight fit trying to jam it in between the swing arm and the wheel. It was just easier to, while I had the jack still here, easier to just pull the thing back out, lower it back down, and do it properly. So when you're all confident and ready to go up, I've jacked it up a little ways, obviously. Spacer goes in next. Doesn't matter which way. And in she goes. And you're gonna have to hold that there, just as you bring it up a little bit. Sometimes you need a little wiggle like that to stop being an asshole. Okay, I think that we are there. You can eyeball it. Yeah, we're really close on this side. So just bring it. That'll work. Yeah, and once you're close, you can put the axle in and start trying to pick around until it agrees with you. There she goes. You might need a little bit more lift. There it goes. That is it. We're through. So all the weight is on jack still, and I'm just trying to line it up on this side, and boom. Push through nice and easy. So now, yeah, we're good. Now what I can do is, where's the nut? Right there. This is a little trick I learned from doing this twice, is the next step, once you've got this thing up and the axle through, and obviously your spacer's in place, is the tire or the wheel and the gear assembly is still not mated with your bevel box. So all I do is I just throw the nut on, oops, if I hold it from this side, throw the nut on, just a couple threads, and that way you can't pull it through as you do this. So I'm going to put it into gear, and you can just gently slide the wheel over. Actually, it might be easier with the jack down, to be honest with you. I'll put the jack back in a second, just to support it. But okay, so now she's totally free. So you can now slide the wheel on the axle. There it is. It's it's impossible to show you, but it's obvious when it goes in. And now we are, I've got it in gear. You can hear it, right? So it's fighting against the gear, which means those two teeth are mated. If it's not all the way in, it's going to be once we tighten everything up. So now I'm going to go back to neutral. Yeah, we're good to go. Okay, sweet. That's all there is to that. I'm going to put this back just enough to take up some of the weight. I kind of like just seeing that the axle floats loose. You know what I mean? That way I know that it's not binding too much. If you can, right now it seems like it's a little tight. Oh, actually went too high. That's funny. Yeah, I just kind of want to be able to move it with my hand like that. Yeah, just a tiny bit more. Yeah, see, right now it's nice and loose like that. That's when I feel comfortable. That way I know that everything's not getting hurt or pinched or anything. So spacers in place, looking great. If you wanted to, if you want to throw another lacquer rinse on, because we've been dicking around here, it might not be the worst idea ever, but I'm pretty confident I haven't touched anything. And so, so the next thing we have to do is you pull the axle back just far enough to let the brake caliper come in. So I'm going to pull it through here. Just wiggle it back. What you don't want to do is lose the spacer. So just pull it back until it's inside the spacer a little bit, like that. Get my nut ready. Then, I also need the torque reaction bolt, which is still over here after being cleaned. There it is. Okay, so I had a little brake difficulty there when my brake pads fell over. So I had to kind of wiggle it back in place. But either way, the next step now that we've got the spacer in is to gently slide this beast in place. Make sure that all your wires are coming around, your spacers being polite down here. Oh, fucking dummy. Gotta make sure your brakes go over. How about that? Yeah, so you gotta make sure they're spaced open. There we go. That's what I wanted. Slid over the discs nice. That came down perfect. Now I can actually reach around here and push the axle all the way through like that. Well, that's got it in place. And now I've just got to take a little flashlight and see where my front caliper is going. It is right there, I believe. Yep. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's all there is to that. So the next thing to go in is your torque reaction bolt, and this requires a little bit of thread locker. So I want to go remind myself whether I'm supposed to torque up the axle before I put the torque reaction bolt on. So go refer to the book. Let's go see what we got. So okay, so it wants 110 Newton meters and 69 volts. Okay, so It says to do the axle bolt first. So we're going to throw that thing on. And that goes all the way up to 110 Newton meters. Of course, refer to your manual. Make sure that you've got that right for your year and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to put a little bit of thread lock on this. You don't ever go crazy with this stuff, but I just put a couple of drops across the top, let it run down a little bit. And that should be it. And we'll just drag it across. I need to put a counter tensioner on the other side there. So I'm going to get to work on that right away before I do the torque reaction bolt. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to just thread it in there real quick because I'm going to be torquing against this thing. I want to make sure it's in the right place. So a little bit of thread lock on this. Not too much again. There it is. Yep, she's in the right spot. Okay, so I gotta remind myself what these are. This one here, I believe, was a 14 millimeter. Yep. 14 mil for that thing. And this big bugger was 24 millimeters. So again, I've got to go put I'll show you. On this side, I've got a big giant breaker bar, and it is a 14 hex end. That's what the other side of the axle uses. So I'm going to put it on this side. So when it hits the ground like that, it's got something to fight against as I'm torquing it. So we're going to torque that thing up now. I'll sneak up on it. It wants 110 Newton meters. Get some light here. There. That's tightening. Oh, maybe I have the wrong size. Oh. Actually doesn't seem very high. 110 Newton meters is only 80 foot-pounds. It's not too bad. Okay. So now I'm just watching my other side here to make sure that power bar is doing its job. Careful. There we go. Now we're getting a bit of resistance. I'm being really careful here because I don't know what's going to happen with this other side. I don't know if it's going to lift the bike up or what, but Jesus Christ, how fucking tight is this thing? There it is right there. Boom, done. Okay. That side is out and good. And then this one, I think it said 69 Newton meters. Let's go have a look. Yep, torque reaction bolt is 69 Newton meters. So I think, I've got the right size. Good. Okay. So, there we go. There's 70. Yeah, just a little bit higher. All right. Okay. And one more look, that felt a little light. 85, 70. 70 on the dot. Okay, so those are both torqued up. All right, so let's have a little tour here. Get rid of these gloves. Okay, let's have a little tour. So we now have the brake caliper has been put back on properly. Brakes are straddling the disc. We've got everything back in order. We've got spacer, caliper, swing arm, bolts on, torque reaction bolts, mint. Now, on my previous video, obviously I've got everything disassembled here. The next thing I've got here is this little stupid Torx reaction, or Torx headed bolt right here. So I'm gonna put that back in. We needed that to get all this extra play out of the cables, otherwise it would have been way too tight. And then you just start reassembling this whole side, and it's actually surprisingly quick. You've got the Torx bolt goes on next, which tightens down your brake lines, and then you put your shock back on, which goes on this little point right here and its corresponding point down here. And then, so the shock goes on next, and then we start the exhaust reassembly. So, all right, I will walk you through that next. Okay, so the next thing, like I said, is reattaching your brake line mount to the swing arm, which is right here. And that requires, let me just look at it over here, it is a T30 socket for a Torx head. So here we go. Yeah, all you have to do is take this little screw out. I just thread everything back. Whenever I take a bolt out during a job, I always just thread it back in the hole. So, let's see if I can do this with one hand here. Swing that around and put that little beast in there, and then find its home right there. Make sure we're not pinching anything. Nope, everything looks mint. Yeah, it's running underneath your shock, which is where you want it. None of this stuff is twisted around. Looks great. So we have to tighten that up. I'm sure it's probably got some silly Torx or torque rating, but I'll go take a look. So that's the last thing we do here. And then the shock tower goes on, and I'm gonna go check those torque ratings out as well. So we'll be right back. All right, so that little tiny P-clamp there wants 6 Newton meters, but I just tightened it, you know, till it was tight. And so the next thing that's going on is the rear shock, which is that upper mount and that lower mount right there, and this big beast. And it is 28 Newton meters is what it's set to. So I'm gonna slap that on. There's really nothing to it. Honestly, you just wiggle it in place here. Let's take a look here. So wiggle a little bit on top. Get her down. Maybe I went a little too far on the top here. Well, I might actually have to, yeah, it's funny. I'm gonna have to put the jack underneath it just to give it a little bit of extra lift to get up there. But either way, so it's gonna be a two-handed job, but this goes on next. The larger washer goes on top to mate with the larger surface there, and the smaller washer down here goes onto the smaller one there, and 28 Newton meters. So that's gonna be the next step. So somebody on the forums gave me a brilliant idea about these annoying exhaust mounts. What they do is they actually leave the exhaust mount on the pipe itself, and then take all this other crap off, and then loosen up the connection down here, and then they can slide this all off as an assembly, because getting these 2 bolt holes lined up with the back of the exhaust pipe is actually kind of a pain in the butt. So I'm going to give it a go. We're going to see how that works. I'm going to do this with one hand here, I guess. Take this out. It's probably going to clamp to the floor. And that can stay right there. Okay, so let's take this beast over. And there is the pipe. So now this is going to be a little math in my head. So I guess the goal here is to have it sitting like that. So yeah, let's see how this goes. I'm intrigued. I'm going to assemble this, and then we'll bring it back over to the bike, and we'll see what it's like trying to fit it. So here goes nothing. All right, so that's the right-hand side exhaust, and I've got it, let's see here, I've got it basically pointing up, so that's the tip. Obviously we're looking at the back side, but that's the way I think the mount's supposed to go on there. And yeah, this little connection here is still very loose, so don't lose that. let's get that back on there. I'm just going to take it over there and kind of sort of give it a test fit and see how it goes. But this could be a real speed saver here, so we'll see. I haven't tightened these psycho, but yeah, just snug them up. You can always reach these later on when it's on the bike. So, all right, here goes nothing. So, whoever that genius person was on the forums, that's friggin' awesome. So yeah, there's the bracket. It's up and around down there somewhere, and we can still get to the bolts. Let me slide in here a little bit. Where the hell are they? Oh, right there. So I don't know if you can see my finger or not. Yeah, there we go. There's the one, and some other guys over here somewhere. Yeah, right there. So they're easy to reach with your wrench to snug them up fully. But yeah, that was butter. I just slid the mating surfaces together on the exhaust here. It just went nice and easy. Yeah, just threaded that in by hand real quick, and it's holding all the weight. And I can see it's a little low right in there, but we can just lift it up a little bit when I put the passenger peg on. So hell of an idea, man. They're very good. Thank you. Okay, so the next piece that goes on is the just this piece of trim that goes right over there. Those two Allen-headed bolts you can see that I've got threaded in obviously have to come out. They go through these two holes. And then let me get this switch in my hands here. At the back here is where your passenger peg was. So that goes right through, and then that is your final tensioner for the rear exhaust mount. So I'm going to take those two beasts out, and I'm going to put this piece on. But again, kind of a two-handed job, so we'll see what that looks like next. Okay, so yeah, that went mint. I haven't tightened any of these up yet. These are still loose. And then all I had to do is just kind of put my hand underneath here just a little bit and give it a little help up to get all these little holes to line up together. And then, yeah, I've got the nut that goes on the back over here, and we're done. It's almost foolproof putting the rear passenger peg on. Like I said in my last video, that's kind of keyed. There's a little dot on the back of the peg, and but to make it easier to remember, the beveled side faces down, the flat side's on top. So obviously it needs to flip up. So, but yeah, you could in theory put it upside down. So anyway, there you go. I'm going to tighten all this stuff up, and then the piece of heat shielding goes on here. And then we're going to snug up this little junction right there. And then this side is done. Yeah, so I'm going to run through and make sure all my bolts are good, and then we'll tackle the other side. Okay, so that is all snug. That little beast is all tight. And so now the last step on this side is the chrome heat shield, which goes here. So the steps, it's noisy and squeaky as hell, but the steps are you slide this tip underneath the chrome right under here, okay, underneath the existing piece of heat shield. And then I figured I'd want to show you guys this because it was a little confusing the first time. First things first, I said this in the other video, but this is the back side of the heat shield. And you can see it's got this bit of a clamp to it here. That clamp just kind of snaps over the smaller part of your muffler there. So you just, let me get this back here. You just kind of shove it over once you've got this piece in properly. This just kind of snaps in place. And before I do it, I kind of wanted to show how your clamp works too here. So let me get that sit on my leg so it doesn't slide down. Okay, so this side here is top, okay? This is the other half of your clamp. This is what it looks like. So you're gonna reach around the back side of your muffler and you hook this little piece like that, see? So you got your little hole here, right? Goes like that, and you thread it through. You obviously I gotta take this thing out, and the bolt goes through and pinches that at the bottom. That's how you tighten around that piece there. So yeah, that was a little hard to see first time I was doing this. I didn't know what I was getting into, but yeah, it's real simple. You'll see. And this clamp part here holds the heat shield right in place. So we'll just give it a go right now. I'll set that clamp down, switch some hands around here, and let's see if we can do this. So we'll just slide that under there. There we go. Everything looks good. And then on this side, I'm just kind of sneaking my fingers up. You just kind of give it a little love. Boom. She's over. Make sure you're lined up in the hole here, like that. Just a little wiggle. And the first piece you put on or the first bolt you put on is that. It's just another standard 5mm Allen head. Snug that up. And I'll tighten her up here in a second. I might need a little bit of room to move. So you can look over there and you can see your little hook. Where did I put my clamp? It's right there. Okay, so I'm going to take the end out. Or the bolt out, sorry. Set that down. And then again, your little open end here goes up and around the back side. So I'm just going to kind of look over here and use my actual eyes instead of not a camera. And there we go. So your drop on. Yeah, and that's it. And then when you come around to the bottom, you'll see that they're sort of lined up here, like that. Yeah, and then you just put your bolt through, and you are done. Okay, let's see if I don't know if I can do this with one hand, but it's obviously pretty obvious. Yeah, we're gonna put the phone down for this part, so away we go. Okay, so now this is the left-hand side exhaust, driver side if you want to call it, and I just mounted the the mounting plate that's going to go up against the bike here. So I just put it on the exhaust just like I did on the other side. Again, this part here goes up, it's high, and this is the tip of the muffler over here. So this should be pretty simple. Torque these up, and let's go see how it fits on the bike. So I've actually taken a break here, so I got to reacquaint myself, see where we are. First things first, need one more bit of light. Okay, so I believe this entire side, yeah, we're all done on this side. The only thing I have left to do, those are all tightened up. I just finished doing the heat shield, so that's all tight. Clamp is tight, connection's tight there. Those are tight. Passenger pegs on. The one thing I haven't done is snug up really firmly the two bolts that go on the mount that hold the rear can on. So I want to go throw a wrench up in there and tighten them up. And then this side's totally done. And so on this side, we've got, we've got this whole assembly to do. And if it goes as smooth as the other side did, it should be real easy. The one thing I'm a little nervous about is when you put the muffler on the other side, the output from the catalytic converter or whatever that is, it was pointing forward. This one, you have to slide the muffler on this direction, and sometimes you have to kind of go, wah, 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 as you're trying to wiggle it in. And there's not a lot of room. You're going to see here, the first thing I'm going to do is, oh no, actually the muffler goes on first. So yeah, this could be interesting. We'll see how this goes. I'm just nervous about when you put the whole muffler up against here, the muffler still has the heat shield on the front of this side. And so you don't have a ton of room to wiggle up and down without bumping into these things and scarring up your chrome. So this one could be a little bit spicier, but either way, let's see how it goes. So that's the next step. Okay, good time for one little tip here. So I've got the thing sitting in my lap, obviously. And we're going to be sliding it onto that little piece right there. I learned this tip last time I did this job, is a little spray of WD-40 right across the top here, and just let it run around before you go to slide the muffler on. Goes a long way, because it's going to burn off, obviously, but it sure makes it sliding onto that part right there a hell of a lot easier. So why I stopped is I can see one of the challenges of mounting this plate before you get it up here is you can have these bolts can actually slide inside of the, how do I describe this? Let's see if I can turn this thing over here. Hold on. Without marring up my chrome too bad. Yeah, if you look on the underside, this is attached to the muffler itself, and there's a sliding bolt that's inside here. I've referenced it in my previous video, but it allows you to move the mount just a little bit. And I noticed that when I got it up here, it didn't quite line up with the holes. So I need to put the phone down and figure out which way I've got to go. But if I remember right, I need to move the muffler that way just a tiny bit. So I'm going to loosen these up and just shimmy them over a tiny bit and retorque them. And then, see how it fits back up here. See if it lines up. And then we should be good to go. I might actually even leave these just a little tiny bit loose so I can jimmy it around a little bit. And then actually, that's not a bad idea. And then I can always just torque it up with the wrenches afterwards. So yeah, that should work. See what happens. Hell yes. Yeah, that worked like a charm. So just leave the bolts on the back of your muffler, wherever they are down here. Can you see my finger? Yeah. Just leave those two loose and just barely snug. And then that way you can slide this mount around just a tiny bit. And that made it so much easier. And it's pretty obvious where the bolt was before. You can see marring from where the bolt was attached before. So I just snugged that one up once I got this hole looking good. And so it should be real smooth sailing. So the next thing I'm going to do is take the little clamp. Actually, I should probably go under here real quick and show you what we're dealing with. If the light would adjust, that would be great. Anyway, this little clamp just has to come over. I might have to loosen it a bit, but shimmy her back over there. Yeah, and then just tighten that up. And we are good to go there. And then you just start putting together all of your, you just put all these parts back on. So just like on the other side, this thing goes on, your rear passenger peg goes through, which are the 3 points of contact for that clamp. And then I think we are done. Yeah, so let's get that the lower clamp put on first of all before I forget. Gonna tighten up these back two before you forget, and then we're gonna tackle this. All right, that is it. So we've got this little beast on, 2 bolts here, passenger peg going through, bolts on the back, same as the other side. Exhaust went on mint. That little beast is torqued up underneath there. I've tightened up the back of both of the mount bolts for the big old cannons. And so, yeah, I think that is it. Now, just got to give it a once around to make sure we are good. So yeah, the shock never came off of this side. Exhaust is fully done there. Never touched the heat shield. Heat shield is on that side. Those are all done, tightened up. Pegs mint. Yeah, we are looking good. The shock is torqued. Okay. So yeah, now all you have to do is take off all the straps that have been holding the bike to the jack stand, clear all your tools out of the way. And yeah, we are good to go. Make sure your kickstand is down. Little reminder, make sure your kickstand is down before you put this thing down, so you don't just absent-mindedly let it tip over on its side. So for me, the order I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the handlebars first of all, just so I can let them flop a little free, and then I'm going to take off the cross. And yeah, clear it all out of the way, and then we are good to go. All right, thanks for coming along. I hope that helped. It wasn't quite as smooth as my as my taking the wheel out video, but yeah, hopefully that was helpful. Any questions, just post away. Thanks, guys.